So bringing it back to this deal, though, his guy's got a line out the door for it. Why? What is it about this deal that caused him to have a line out the door?
I think it's the size and the margin.
I mean, Heather, for the first Acquisitions Anonymous Fund 1, I think we could put together an investment.
I want nothing more than for people to think that South Carolina should not be on their radar. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. We've got all of our hosts here today, and we have an amazing deal. I'm giddy with excitement. When I saw this listing this week, I sent it to everybody. I would have stopped what I was doing, come back here, recorded the episode right away. This is an amazing business. It's so amazing that the broker even put the deal on hold, is what BizBuySell says. They're not accepting any other inquiries. This is a $11 million asking price, $2.8-ish million free cash flow, toilet partition manufacturer and installer in Orange County. It checks so many boxes. It's a really fascinating discussion. You also, the puns, we need you to send us your best bathroom puns. We had a bunch of them on the episode. The jokes abound. There's some great stories about toilet partition, nightmare scenarios that Bill has. But I think you're really going to enjoy the episode. It's a great deal. We talk a lot about the mechanics of how a business like this runs. How do they make money? What would be a preferential revenue mix? Maybe what wouldn't be a great revenue mix? And why does a business like this have a line out the door for the broker? Hope you enjoy the episode.
Business buying comes with a lot of questions. What type of business should you buy? Where are you going to get the money? Who can guide you with true expertise? Boopos.com and its team of expert acquisition advisors are here to help. They are one of the leading online platforms to buy and sell online businesses. Unlike others, they have financing included within their marketplace of impressive SaaS and subscription-based companies for scale. As soon as you sign up, one of their advisors will guide you through their platform of Boopos proprietary deals, deals from other brokers, or you can bring your own deal and they will help you pre-vet it. Don't do business buying alone. Do it with Boopos.com and tell them that the Acquisitions Anonymous podcast sent them your way.
Michael, you don't have it hooked up on the Stream Deck? You need the buttons to control it all.
Oh, you know, all this lighting, the Godox lighting, it only works on the app. It won't work on the computer. So yeah, I don't even have my Stream Deck plugged in anymore. I basically use the phone as that. So
does it have, this is nerdy, but all of my smart home stuff that doesn't work with the Stream Deck, you can use if this, then that. And Stream Deck will fire an if this, then that event, which will then fire whatever API Godox has.
Oh, okay.
So you can use your Stream Deck again if you want.
This is peak nerdiness.
That sounds like something I should probably do.
For those of you not watching on YouTube, Michael and Bill are experimenting with lighting. It's awesome.
Yeah, Mills, you're like 3 months behind us. You just bought the nice camera. You got the nice mic.
I know. I'm in, guys. I want to be a nerd. I'm just aspiring.
Yeah. Takes time.
I'm excited about your investments because people were not happy with your audio. So
I know. What a blunder. But we got.
I tried listening to our last episode. I was like, why does Mills sound like a robot? It's because you did sound like a robot. So.
We're on the right track, I hope.
We are.
I saw a deal this week that I got so excited about. If you guys had said we need to record an episode right now, I would have stopped what I was doing to record about this deal because there are so many different directions we could take this deal, and there's going to be tons of jokes. But this, I've never looked at a company like this, and I have not pre-checked out the listing at all. Are you guys ready for this?
I have never been more ready. That was the best introduction of all time to any deal that we've ever done on this show.
The other reason I'm super excited about this business is I know Bill has come in with a banger of a story to share about this, and this just reminded me of a story I want to share too about the business I totally wish I had done, but I didn't do. So anyway, we'll work it in. But yeah, this is one of my best stories.
Let's hear it, Mills.
This is gonna be a good one for everybody reading between the lines. This deal is on hold on BizBuySell, so I don't know if that means they're under LOI or if they changed their mind or if they're waiting on their revised financials. But this is a manufacturer and installer of toilet partitions. There's a great photo up on BizBuySell. It's located in Orange County, California, and it says there's real estate available with it. The asking price is $11 million. The free cash flow is $2,815,000 a year on $9.9 million in revenue. They have $750,000 worth of inventory, and $8.5 million worth of real estate that's not included in the asking price. Business has been around since 1996. They say it's a $2.5 million EBITDA with 20% revenue growth since 2021. On hold, oh, here we go. Due to the high amount of inquiries, this listing is on hold. Family owned and operated for nearly 30 years, this well-established and highly profitable company operates in the niche market of toilet partitions. It manufactures, distributes, and installs toilet partitions, dividers, and accessories for schools, stadiums, hotels, office buildings, and the like. The company's margins benefit from the multiple streams of revenue generated from installing the products that they sell. Known for their great service, high-quality products, and fast lead times, the business has grown over 20% in revenue from 21 to 23. Still, there are opportunities to scale by expanding the service area and or the product accessories being offered. The quantity of potential customers are innumerable as every commercial bathroom needs stalls and or bathroom accessories. Located in a highly desirable area of Orange County, the real estate is available for lease or for sale. Business is offered for $11 million, primarily on the West Coast, but they have nationwide reach, high customer count with low revenue concentration, 18 loyal and experienced employees, not including the owners, $3 to $4 million in backlog, $750,000 of inventory included in the sale, additional inventory sold separately. Don't know what that means. Real estate offered for sale for $8.5 million or leasing it. Let's see, it's a 16,250 square foot building on a 29,000 square foot lot. Prime location, freeway access, 2 closed-in fence yards. They have room for LTL, less than truckload trucks, loading and unloading. Only 80% capacity. They can grow in the space. Serious inquiries only. You can sign an NDA. You can get the detailed SIM. John Moser from Sunbelt Business Brokers of Los Angeles. I think that's almost all the detail. Anything else is kind of repetitive down here. What do you guys think about our toilet partition deal?
This is a microcosm of what's going on in the small business M&A, brokered small business M&A space now. Is a shitty deal like this. I'm just joking.
Let's just do a pun count, okay?
Yeah,
one pun count.
A shitty deal like this, the broker has so many inquiries that they've had to put a moratorium on receiving phone calls. Like basically it's a Southwest Airlines call center this guy's running, right? Like they're not answering the phone anymore because it's so busy, right? I think it's just.
Could you say that they're backed up a little bit?
It seems like a very constipated way of going after the market, as far as I'm concerned.
I think John Moser here deserves an award for perhaps the most compelling biz buy sell listing I have ever read. I mean, this guy just nailed it. Everything about this listing makes me want to buy this business.
Don't you want to reach out to, knowing that it's on hold? I mean, I know that it's a crowded process, but part of me wants to be like, John, buddy, come on,
bro.
Send me this film.
Come on. I've been searching for 5 years and, my Stanford MBA is worth nothing by this point. I really need to buy this toilet business. Help me out.
Yeah.
So it's got $2.8 million of cash flow on 11 million, and they're basically installing
on 9.9. 11 is the asking. Yeah.
Wow. Big margin. It's 28%, I think. Yeah.
So I got to assume, right, just so we really understand what this is probably a subcontractor that if you are building a commercial bathroom or if you have an aging commercial bathroom that needs to be upgraded, they come in and they literally install the stalls, right? The little rooms that the toilets sit in, that is what they make. Not the toilets, nothing else, just the walls and the doors and the latches and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're not plumbers. They're not tile guys. This fits into the category of after paint hardware installation. Like in a house, it would be blinds and closet partitions and, maybe interior doors. But I don't think they have any licensure. I don't think anything is required for this.
Yeah.
It's glorified furniture, right? It's just attached, it's just screwed down to the floor and the walls.
Yep.
I think of it, Bill, I kind of think of it about like you see commercial window and glass businesses. And when I first got exposed to those, I thought, oh, they must be like making glass in some little shop. And actually those types of businesses, what they're really in is the window frame business. They get the glass, they'll cut the glass sometimes, but oftentimes it shows up precisely from the factory the way they want it. and then they're building the frames around that. Then they install the whole thing. Like that's their business. And so there'll be like a light manufacturing or light kind of thing going on here. And I think, to Mills's point, what these guys have is a shop where somebody says, hey, I want specifically this color of bathroom stall, and you want this much, this type of fixture and all that kind of stuff. And they're assembling all these things from the manufacturer, but then they're often cutting and laminating stuff to make that stuff fit for what they need exactly. So I bet that's the type of light manufacturing these guys are doing. Yeah. But most of this stuff is coming like halfway done, like the fixtures and, the lock mechanisms and stuff. Those have to come just straight from the factory in a big box. They're just putting it all together.
So they're getting like the substrate, like the PVC, vinyl, or whatever these things are made of, and they're cutting it to size, finishing the edges, and bringing it to the site and installing it, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think there's
that bar at the top is like a piece of extruded aluminum. They're not making that stuff. They're buying it, already made in 20-foot sticks, and they cut it to length, when they go to install.
So there's a lot to like about that. I think because it gives you a moat, right? You end up with like these guys have probably 15 or 18 folks working in a big shop doing that kind of stuff. So it's hard to replace those people. You have equipment that's a moat also. You go into, I guarantee these folks shop have a big set of machines, $150,000, $250,000 machines that are doing cutting. And then they have a fleet of CAD people as well, like doing the designs and programming the machines. And the nice thing about that is it's also the type of manufacturing you kind of want to do. It's like subscale. It's hard to offshore to China and other places. Like it's
heavy.
That's not going
so it's kind of got to be done right here because it's expensive to ship.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever noticed on these, like the screws that get used on toilet partitions are security? They're labeled like security fasteners, and they either are a very odd bit. Michael, I know you're laughing, but next time you go into a public bathroom stall, you're going to look at this and you're going to think about it for the rest of your life. But they are specific fasteners that they're like one way. You can only tighten them, and when you go to loosen them, like the bit will not work. Or they're an odd bit, like a Torx bit, a star bit, but they have a dot in the middle. So like, if these were all Phillips heads or flat heads and somebody sitting in the stall, they would be unscrewing this thing and it would be falling apart, within a matter of weeks or months. But they use these special types of fasteners that allow them to not be taken apart by, whoever's just in there using them.
Is this a problem? Like people are bored on the toilet, they just start unscrewing anything in sight?
Bill, have you never been in a public restroom? You should see the porta-johns on the job sites. There's porta-john graffiti that is like this amazing burgeoning kind of, a subculture of art. Truth be told,
what is going on here?
Truth be told, the technology behind these things is kind of interesting because they try and make it graffiti proof. They make it either that like, you can very easily clean it if somebody writes on this stuff with a Sharpie, or they make it really durable because what people will do is they'll just take like knives or sharp objects and just like scratch their name in them.
Yeah. So, and that's what this stuff is made of, right? This kind of bulletproof plastic, vinyl, whatever you would call it.
Yep.
So do you guys want to hear the story about why these are really important? these toilet partitions?
Yeah.
So, I have a younger brother, and he went to a college that shall not be named on the show. And I went to visit him. I was out of college. I was working in finance, and he is like a junior in college, and he's living in the fraternity house at his school. So I go to visit him. I'm going to stay with him in his dorm, one night. And I arrive, unpack my things, and I need to use the restroom. So I go, "Where's the bathroom?" Oh, it's down the hall, right? You walk in, and it is a restroom, kind of your typical commercial restroom, with a couple sinks, bunch of toilets, except there are no partitions. So just picture like a whole bunch of toilets just lined up next to each other against the wall. No privacy, and the toilet paper holders are just screwed into the wall. And I'm like, so how do you use this bathroom? And he's like, you just use the bathroom. And I'm like, so there's multiple, and some of them are across from each other. So I'm like, so if you're, and this is all guys, it's a fraternity house, right? But still, so I'm like, if me and another guy are in here using the toilet, like we're just eyeballing each other straight up. And you live this way. You have lived this way for 3 years in this house, just pooping in public with no toilet partitions. And I asked him, I said, why on earth do you not have toilet partitions in here? And he said that the bad things were going down inside the partitions. And so they needed to remove the partitions to discourage use of the bathroom for things that is not going to the bathroom. And so there's like this group of 100 dudes living in a home with no bathroom partitions, just eyeballing each other while they poop. And I had to participate in this for a weekend in my 20s. It was not enjoyable. So these things are very important, toilet partitions.
It's a great story.
I have read a story that I think it was England or some part of Europe, that people came over to the United States and they saw that we have little gaps in the, if you look very carefully, like, Mills just told us to look at the screws. Well, there's a little gap, but I mean, none of us are sitting there trying to look inside, but apparently it really bothers some other cultures to come and see that that's even there. Like in their country, it has to be completely flush where there's no way you could possibly see inside. So that would be, that would be the first thing I would look at is, like, do these have gaps or are these perfectly sealed?
I think to Mills's point, they probably have gaps on purpose, like for easy cleaning, right? Because like anytime you have flush mount or like stuff gets banged around, like then it won't close. Like if the tolerance is too tight, so like I imagine these things get beat up. People slam the doors, people don't care. And you don't want, then if it doesn't close, it becomes basically non-functional. Right. Like if the tolerance is tight and it gets out of alignment a little bit and the door won't close and you can't lock it, no one can use that toilet. Mm-hmm. So I imagine our trade-off is like the slight bit of privacy for more resiliency in our latching mechanisms.
And airflow. You want air moving through your bathroom. You don't want to walk into the little toilet thing. It's like airtight. Like
that's a good point. That's a good point.
That's as a person who causes that problem a lot, I will tell you don't want it airtight.
As someone who eats chilies a lot, you're familiar with that problem.
Pretty much, yeah. So let me ask you guys, like, okay, so this business is getting a massive amount of phone calls. Like, I'm curious, like, is it justified? Like, yeah, this is a great listing. It looks like a great business to own. And I can see why it's getting a lot of phone calls, but like, are we missing anything about, like, are there tailwinds or are there headwinds for this business coming up? Like I'm just thinking about, okay, like this requires like a more in-person office style work, right? Is that something we're still betting on, or like, are we worried about that for this business?
I'm worried about that for this business. And I live in Orange County. So, it's the same here as any of the major metro areas. The offices are, pretty empty. They're not being used. And lots of businesses are getting out of their leases when they can in terms of office lease. So I would really want to know what kinds of businesses are these going into? Do they do any maintenance or replacement? How much is replacement versus how much is brand new? I do think that's a headwind for this business. I definitely do. And the other thing I'm worried about financially is the value of the real estate versus the cash flow.
Great point.
I'm always worried about that in places like this because I think he said $8 million worth of real estate. And these guys have owned the business for 30 years. Are they paying market rent? Is market rent included in that 2.8 million? Or is that 2.8 million going to go down when we have to pay market rent? And is it the highest and best use of a property like that to have a business like this? And it becomes a difficult question in these higher rent districts.
If I had to guess, so I'm actually going to give John J. Moser here a little bit of credit, the broker. He has talked enough about the real estate and the fact that the buyer can either buy it or negotiate a market rate lease that I would think if he has not adjusted the financials for it, this is a pretty slam dunk adjustment where you just basically hold up a mirror to his listing and you go, I need to negotiate a market rate lease, right? Now, the question, though, is, and this is what I've seen, I think you're alluding to, Heather, this business has been owned by these guys for a long time, the current owners. When they bought this real estate under the business, it was probably worth substantially less, right? It's probably appreciated a fair bit. And to your point, I think that's when you come into your point about highest and best use. It probably would no longer make sense to locate this business in exactly this location and pay the amount of rent that a property that is worth what this property is now worth will command. unless you already own the property, which these guys do. So I think you may end up either realizing that you're paying more rent than you should, or I think this probably conversation about the real estate ends in you moving the business or wanting to move the business.
Yeah,
Mills,
I would think
how big is this real estate that they have? Like how many square feet?
16,000 square feet.
Okay.
And on a 29,000 square foot lot, I mean, just rough math, I think with a conservative cap rate, they're probably paying $200,000 a year in rent.
On an $8 million piece of property?
I would think so. If the net operating income, if you're talking about a 6 cap, if the net operating income, like it would have to be about $141,000 a year of NOI. So depending on if it's triple net or whatever, I'm thinking they're probably spending 150 to 200,000 on rent.
Well, a 10 cap is going to be 880,000 on an $8.8 million piece of property, right? So let's say they're paying
$7 million a year rent you'd have to pay.
Yeah. So to Heather's question, I wonder what they're actually paying. But yeah, that's to your point, Bill. That's where my mind went on this deal immediately. Was like, oh, why am I paying Orange County salaries and Orange County real estate prices to do something that could be done in Phoenix, probably for a lot cheaper, and in $1 million building rather than a $9 million building? And my only cost there is I have to put stuff on a truck and drive it west, out to Orange County overnight for job sites. So I think I'd be interested in, is that really feasible? Could you create a lot of value by getting out of this high cost area? No offense, Heather.
Well, and there's even places in Southern California they could move this business that aren't as far as Phoenix that, are a lot cheaper than being right in Orange County manufacturing something. And I think that's what we're going to see over time is that, as these legacy businesses get sold, they're going to move out to those cheaper areas where it makes more sense for the cost of the real estate. So the other part about that idea, though, is how expensive is it to move? When you're talking about heavy equipment and however they're set up in there to do their manufacturing, it can be very costly, downtime and just the cost alone of moving. For a buyer to come in and say, I'm going to buy, I'm going to transition, and I'm going to move, that seems like it adds another layer of risk. So I'm always curious how these turn out when the real estate is worth almost as much as the business. And I think about it from the seller's perspective too. They want to unlock both of those values probably to retire, right? They want the 8 million and the 11 million. So, it's an interesting conundrum for the buyer in terms of how you structure your offer, whether you include the real estate or you don't.
The other thing, Heather, about moving is you move this thing to Phoenix, or even if you move this thing an hour down the road in Orange County, you might lose all your employees. Mm-hmm. Suddenly they've all got an hour commute, right?
Right.
And that's a big deal. The other thing that I'd like to understand about this business, which relates to kind of how local is most of their revenue manufacturing this and shipping it to the site? Or is most of their revenue kind of the turnkey, we manufacture it, we bring it to the site, our crew installs it, and you're good to go? Because those are very different businesses. If a lot of the value you're creating is installing it and kind of turnkey, now you don't have the long arm reach outside of your local market that you would like to have, right? Because you probably could still do it. You could partner with subcontractors or GCs in various markets and teach them how to do it, but it's a little bit harder, right? And you might not be able to capture as much of the value. Versus if right now, if they have margins like this and they're basically just supplying it, and then whoever happens to be on site from the GC is installing it, that's a much better business because you can do two things. You can move it out of Orange County, get your cost down, as Michael implied, or leave it in Orange County and expand your reach nationwide and grow your business by bidding on jobs outside of Orange County. So that would be the first thing I want to understand is how much of this is manufacturing and how much of this is install as far as, and I don't just necessarily mean the financials as far as where the revenue is, but how much of the value proposition of the business is turnkey installation versus we make really good bathroom partitions.
See, I think I agree with you. I like the service and install model better than the manufacturing model. And I think based on their margin, they're controlling the labor. I just don't think there's any way they're just a distributor. I think the space is probably too crowded. Like, I don't know what the TAM of bathroom partitions is, but we know they're very, very, very small part of it. I remember looking years ago at a distributor. They would help kind of connect people to installers, but they had an exclusive distributorship over certain manufacturing lines of like very high end cabinetry, think like collegiate locker rooms, NFL locker rooms, all those like cubbies that you see the players sitting around. Also like police stations, like lockers, and evidence rooms and things like that. They had some exclusive distribution rights on those, but their margins were way below 10%. And it was a much larger business than this, but it was because they weren't controlling the install.
So my thesis, as I looked at some of the other ways to buy bathroom partitions, is these guys specialize in high end and very custom stuff. I would be willing to bet if you just I just Google like buy bathroom partitions, and like the low end of this market is totally what you expect, like Chinese, imported, commoditized, cheap stuff, right? Like since we talked about like the roadside public bathroom stuff, like I think that stuff, the stainless steel stuff, like the common generic stuff, I think it's all super commoditized. I would be willing to bet when you dig into this is very much the higher end custom end of the market. And that picture they have there, like, I'm not even sure that's one of the ones these guys have done. Like, I bet you the stuff they're doing is actually potentially even higher end than this, and custom fitting, and, kind of like, hey, we're spending $250 a square foot to fix up our law firm office. Like, you call these guys when you're doing your bathrooms. And so that's my suspicion. And I think reinforced by the large amount of margin for somebody at this scale, handling a physical product. So that's my thesis.
The other thing that y'all mentioned that I think is important is like, you look at their customer mix or their in market mix. If this is office, I think it can be very scary because they're not doing this, in DFW, right? They're doing it primarily in Orange County. But if a lot of their customer mix is K through 12, if it's schools, this process is kind of interesting. A lot of times the architect who's designing the entire school, which might be an $80 million school, they're picking the fixtures and the finishes, and they're saying, we want this color tile and this color carpet and this style ceiling tiles and lighting. And also we want these types of door handles and these types of bathroom partitions. And the competitiveness over architects' eyeballs for specifications is crazy. They don't want, every single vendor of every single product that could get manufactured calling them and hounding them about their little, micro manufacturing outfit like this probably is. And so a lot of times architects, if they're building a school, they'll specify in the plans, you've got to use one of 2 or 3 different manufacturers for most of the products. And you can try and request substitutions, but there's certain kind of standards that have to be held to. If you can get in, it's great because it's a moat. Then the micro manufacturer can't edge you out on price, and you can command a premium.
All right, I have a question. Let's say you're a listener to this podcast. You're one of the 3 of them, and you decide you're out hunting for a deal, and that's why you listen to the podcast. And you decide you want, at this stage, you run across this listing that's listed as on hold, and you decide this is the deal for you. You want to try to get into the game and see if you can try to make this yours. What would you tell that person, that listener? Do you have any ideas for them to try to be in the game for making this their deal?
Like how to win in a competitive process like this?
Like right now, let's just say you are you scroll across this thing and you want to get in the game. So you're not even in the process right now. Like, how do we solve for that? And like, then if you want to talk about how to win eventually, yeah. But like right now, I'm just like, oh, this guy's not even taking phone calls. Like, but I want to do this deal. Like, what do I do if I'm a searcher?
You go to John J. Moser's office for one, and differentiate yourself, because here we are, 4 of us. One of us is in Orange County or close to it. And, I think you go to his office, you try and show up. Otherwise, you're one of 1,000 people who is sending him, filling out the contact form on Biz Buy Sell, which is no barrier to entry, no friction.
No, and I mean, at the very least, Mills, I wouldn't fill out the form on Biz Buy Sell. I would at the very least go to John J. Moser's website right? And try to email him directly.
Yeah, he puts his email in here, and this, I mean, heck, this is probably his cell phone. I think you try and differentiate and just get face to face with this guy, if you're even remotely in the same neck of the woods.
I think there's also, if you're serious about it, I think there's also a strong signal sent if you're in Phoenix or Denver, like hopping on a plane to John Wayne Airport. And wait, Heather, do they still call it John Wayne Airport, or have we canceled that yet?
We do call it John Wayne Airport still. We've not canceled that.
Okay, yeah. So keep me posted.
I will.
So basically, yeah, like I think there's also a strong signal to your point, Mills, like hopping on a plane, spending a day, flying over and then showing up at the guy's office and be like, I flew all the way from Denver. I want to do this deal and get in the loop. Can I be one of the people you're talking to? Like, that's totally what I would do as well. But I think it's even better if you're flying in from Seattle or San Francisco or Denver, even if you're not in SoCal already.
Because like worst case scenario, he says, sorry, the business is under LOI and we're a week away from closing. And you go, all right, John, what else you got? And I'm here. He's never going to forget the fact that you hopped on a plane sight unseen. Because if you email him and say, hey, can I get some time on your calendar? Can I schedule it for, a Tuesday, 2 weeks from now? You're dead in the water.
So let's say you do get John on the phone or you show up in his office and he goes, yeah, like we'd love to have you participate in the process. You should know there are 14 other parties looking at this. They're all in the midst of looking at it. You're welcome to participate, but good luck. How do you differentiate yourself in a process like that besides just massively overbidding?
I think I would start with trying to understand what John, the broker, is solving for. Like, John, what's important to you? And John may say, like, look, I've had a huge year. I've closed a bunch of deals, so I just want to get the best price on this thing. John may also say, like, look, certainty of close is what matters to me as the broker, and that's what I want to solve for. He could tell or what I want to solve for is the seller has told me he wants to take care of all of his people, right? That's the most important thing. So I would start with trying to understand what both the intermediary and then secondarily the seller are solving for, and then I would try to optimize around those things. And I think it really is one of those things where it depends upon what I hear from them as to how I'm going to approach it. If they tell me they want certainty of close, I'm going to go figure out how to make sure I have the money and a really high level of certainty before I submit an LOI, or that sort of thing. But it all starts with, okay, the seller has a problem here, and the problem is they own a business that they want to sell and get out of. Like, okay, well, tell me how they're going about that, and then I would go back and try to solve towards what they tell me.
That's a great point. The other thing I really like to do is if the broker is acting as in this case, probably a very strong gatekeeper, like you're not getting a site visit, you're not even getting a call with management, you've got to maybe submit an IOI first or something like that. The thing that I always try and do is ask specific enough questions that show that I understand the business. And I'm usually trying to ask questions that the broker can't answer themselves. And they're just like, it'll just be easier if you talk to the seller. Because when the seller understands that you know something about their business, the amount of trust. I just had a call with a seller last week who it's a niche subcontractor in our market. We work with a lot. They're not roofers, but they work with a lot of the same customers. And the feedback I got from the broker was that seller was way more open with you than he has been with any other people we've been on the phone with, because you just knew the name of the school districts, right, that he works with, and some of the same people. You may not be able to do that here, but how can you kind of prove and engender some trust with that person that just moves you along the trust kind of spectrum faster?
I think, Michael touched on it, but speed and certainty to close, I think, are underrated by so many first-time business buyers. Because you're a first-time business buyer, you want to diligence the heck out of it. You want to get cute. You've maybe listened to a bunch of podcasts about how you could structure this deal to only use a $5 million SBA loan and get to your $11 million purchase price. You're probably cobbling together funds, debt, equity, search equity. You need a second lien on your house, who knows what. And all of these things are slow and they are risky to seller, right? So a seller takes one look at you, searcher, with a 90-day lead time to close loan and, equity that you've got to get approvals on from all the guys backing your search fund. plus you need to get a HELOC on your home, he looks at you and goes, no thanks. I'll take the other guy at the same offer that just has cash. Or that's done this before, who has said to me, I bought 3 bathroom partition companies. I know exactly the 3 things I care about in diligence, and then we're going to get closed. I think searchers just totally never consider the impact that whatever process they have that seems so important to them, how that comes across to seller. And it's usually not good.
Yeah, and to your point, I try to help a lot of our searchers that are clients of Viso with that, in that we provide a detailed letter. It's a pre-qualification letter as to their offer. So they do a lot of diligence that they give to us, and we review all the ins and outs of the deal, and then we provide a letter that says, this offer is financeable by X number of banks, to try to help them overcome that. Because like you said, Bill, it is off-putting if they've got other offers that don't rely on SBA financing. But another thing I will say is a lot of people can win an LOI. I've seen it happen many times, saying, hey, I've got cash, and sort of saying or suggesting that they will close with cash. And then as soon as they get it under LOI, they're getting an SBA loan. They don't want to tie up all that cash. So I do think brokers are wise to that, are getting wise to that, that even if you have the cash, you may still want financing, and you may still end up in a very similar process. But yeah, you got to put your best foot forward with your offer. And, we try to help our clients do that.
Another thing I think super underrated is the moment you decide this is going to be like one of the targets you're going to go after for type of business, like going out and like cold calling all the other owners, retirees, people that have sold businesses like this, and asking to have basically like expert calls with them. And a lot of them will do it for free. You just call them and be like, hey, I'm studying your market. I'm trying to buy a business in it. A lot of these folks are long in the tooth, gray hair. They'll take your call. It won't be 100% that'll do it, but a lot of them will just tell you a lot of stuff about the market. And I think that's another way to show and kind of manufacture what you were talking about, Mills, like proving that you're somebody that understands this space really well. Well, you can kind of hack it by actually going and having a lot of, expert calls that you put together on your own. And it's precisely what all the big, private equity shops, hedge fund shops, like they're all paying for these big expert networks to be able to rapidly get up to speed on a market and do all these phone calls and learn about it. You can hack together the same thing, and spend a ton less money than they do, just by cold calling and asking people for their time. A lot of times they say yes.
And I mean, if you pick a niche like this, I'm sure, as shocking as it is, there is a trade show for this, right? There is an industry association. You go somewhere like that as kind of the young, hungry, inquisitive person, and you meet the who's who. Michael's going to Google and find the trade show for us. I can already tell. and all of a sudden, if you can't do this and develop this kind of thesis and this kind of depth in a month, or in, even a quarter. But if you decide to go deep on something, I talked to a guy who did something very similar in the like custom stair business, really high end residential custom stairs. And it's amazing the competitive advantage he has talking to these folks, because he went deep and he understands the nuance of it, versus just somebody who says, I'm just looking at, specialty residential construction or home services generically.
Yeah. I had a searcher talk to me and he goes, I'm really looking for a B2B services business. And I was like, good luck with that. Yeah. He was looking at like a fencing contractor and like a toilet company. He was looking at all kinds of stuff. And I was like, dude, you have no hope of ever doing a deal. Like, you need to niche down and call everybody that does that thing in your target area. And that's how you get a deal done.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to this deal though, these guys got a line out the door for it. What is it about this deal that caused them to have a line out the door? Is it just literally that it seems so unsexy that it's bathroom partitions and the margins are great and the searchers are lining up like crazy?
Size. It's a
size.
competitive amount of EBITDA. It's in that size range where it might be a little bit no man's land, not big enough for a traditional private equity sponsor platform. So it's kind of like, I think if you're buying with the intent to exit, you go, I can get in under the radar and grow it, into the strike zone for a buyer.
Yeah. I think so too. I think it's the size and the margin. That's a pretty attractive margin. So something must be right, and that's a great size to be buying in. And the multiple that they're asking is pretty reasonable for the size of the EBITDA. I think that's the other factor.
It's about 4x, right? They want 11 million on 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.4.
I wouldn't
For
discount
this
that it's
size,
also
that's
in. I wouldn't discount that it's also in SoCal.
Yep.
A lot of people run searches right around where they live, and if this business was in Topeka, it's probably going to be a little tougher to sell. Or like someplace like Columbia, South Carolina.
Michael, you took the words right out of
degenerates.
my mouth. I was gonna make the same point and say Des Moines. So Columbia, South Carolina, who wants to live there?
Charlotte, North Carolina, are these just
Yeah,
total
these backwaters.
total backwater. Dumps.
I want nothing more than for people to think that South Carolina should not be on their radar. I love it.
I agree. Don't move to the Carolinas. It's terrible here. Everything is bad.
It's super
Stay in
expensive.
California.
Move to Austin. You'll love it.
All right. So Gustavo's giving me the side eye for thumbs up, thumbs down here. Thumbs up. Are you guys getting the book on this one? Do we like it?
Thumbs
Absolutely.
up. I'm going to John Mosier's office right after we get off.
Heather's getting in her car. We're going across
I'm
town.
going to video it, so we'll have some material so you guys can
I
see.
mean, Heather, for the first Acquisitions Anonymous Fund 1, I think we could put together an investor pay
I think
group
we
for
can.
this really easily. And I think the jokes would be shitty, but they would be everywhere. So if you do head over there, let us know. I think we can make it happen for you.
All right. I'm going.
Porcelain Partners Fund 1 coming right up. All right. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening to this episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. We will see you next time.